Everyone tells us we need to take advantage of AI. The challenge that I find is that many of us don't know where to start when it comes to utilizing AI. In this episode, Stan Robinson is going to give us what he feels are three critical processes that every sales rep should adopt, especially when they're starting to use AI. You're going to love this. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. On this episode, I have the one and only Stan Robinson, and we're going to be talking about sales AI. Specifically, three simple processes that you should be adopting as a sales rep. Because many of us, we think about AI, it gets overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. There's like so many things you can do with AI, and everyone just says it. Is it like a new buzzword? But what can I do as a sales rep to be effective utilizing AI? Stan's going to lay that out for you today. Big shout out, man. Stan comes with years of experience. He is our Harvard University grad, years of experience working with sales org and individual teams, developing processes, developing programs. So when he comes and speaks, the insights that he's sharing are things that not only has he practiced in the real world, but there's stuff that are legitimate. And he's going to break down for you today those three processes. If this is your first time listening to our show, go ahead and subscribe because I'll make sure you get notified every single time we drop a new piece of episode. I also want to give a shout out to some folks today. I want to give a shout out to AJ Patel. Thank you so much for considering for listening to the podcast. I also want to give a big shout out to Miriam. I appreciate you. Glad you're enjoying the podcast. And also, I want to give somebody else drop me a little message, and I want to make sure I hit them up real quick. Tom, I want to Thomas, it's TOMOS, Thomas. Big shout out to you, man. If you'd like to get a shout out, you want to connect with me, go ahead and find me on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. Let's dive in, get a chance to learn a little bit more about AI and specifically these three processes that my good friend Stan feels everyone should be adopting. Stan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Donald. It's so good to meet you virtually here.
It's always great to be able to see your content on LinkedIn, and I have a link down in the show notes that go back to you. And I would just highly recommend anyone listening, and I bragged you up in the teaser, but take advantage of connecting with Stan and following him. He not only gives you a wealth of information with his years of sales experience for help you out with LinkedIn and so forth and with AI, but just all around amazing individual. So this is why we have him here today. And today we're going to be tackling some topics around AI in particular. Stan, we're going to dive in because I bragged about you a little bit there in the teaser.
Thank you.
I'm a new sales rep, or I'm a seasoned sales rep. I'm listening to this podcast, or I'm a sales leader. Everyone and their mom and their mom's dog are telling me something about AI. But you know what? I am just so overwhelmed. I don't know where to go with it, and I don't know up from down, but I know I'm supposed to be utilizing AI. I need some direction. How would you guide me and help me out with that, Stan?
AI really had its moment when ChatGPT was announced, and that was back around November of 22, if I'm remembering right, give or take. It's just over 2 years. So everyone's starting to hear about it, even though most of us, well, all of us, have been using AI for years now. Anyone that's ever used a GPS, anyone that's ever looked at an Amazon recommendation, Netflix recommendation, all of that is powered by AI. But what happened with the advent of ChatGPT is it allowed average people like us to be able to talk to some of these tools without having to be a programmer. We could do it in natural language. So it's been said that one of the most valuable programming languages in the future will be English, because you'll just be able to talk to the tools. And that's already here. So what ChatGPT did was it allowed average people to be able to interact with these tools and use them intentionally. Because I said we've been using AI for a long time. If we say, for
Yeah.
example, looked at an Amazon recommendation.
So in the
But we
back
weren't,
end, sorry, go for it.
no, I was just going to say, but that wasn't intentional on our part. That was Amazon pushing it to us. Now we can use the tools for our own objectives.
So as a sales professional or sales leaders thinking about that, there that we have these capabilities, ChatGPT came along and kind of helped us to it kind of took like almost unruly data and be able to show us like this data makes sense and this is how you can maximize the data. But how can I, if I, unless there's so many different disciplines in sales that we can utilize chat gpt utilize AI, but let's say I'm a sales org sales leader and I'm trying to look at to drive revenue. Can you give me some directions on what AI components I may should look at, or how I should go about adopting it, or give me some direction here?
Good deal. So we'll talk about AI generically
Okay.
and some use cases. Everyone in sales is sending messages,
Yes.
be emails, it can be LinkedIn invitations and welcome messages, it can be proposals. And to be as effective as possible, you want to tailor those messages to your audience and you want to deliver them in your voice. So, one of the things that these tools can do is help you craft email messages. Now, with some direction, and we'll talk about prompt engineering, quote unquote, a little bit further on, but that's just a fancy way of saying how you give directions to a tool.
Mm,
So, you can ask these tools, listen, craft me an email addressed to a chief revenue officer whose sales team has missed quota for the past 18 months. So, one of their primary concerns is filling their pipeline, and make it professional yet conversational. So, what we're telling the AI to do is to put on the hat of a chief revenue officer and basically think the way that they would think and craft a message that would cause them to respond. So, one way that you can use it in terms of revenue generation, and I just used a generic outreach message as one example, is all forms of messaging.
mm,
Another one is role play. Believe it or not, you can prompt these tools to assume a certain role. So, assume the role of, say, a VP of information technology at a mid-sized company. And I'm a sales rep. So the AI is going to take on the role of your buyer, your decision maker. You're going to have a conversation. You can do it via chat on your keyboard, or with some of these tools, you can have a voice conversation on your phone. And basically, you're role playing a scenario. So I'm reaching out to you, Donald, you're VP of IT, and you get on the call and you can prompt the AI to give you a hard time, to raise price objections, to say we're happy with our existing solution, and literally go back and forth in a role play. So those are our two instances. And then you can also use it for research.
yeah. I think the research part, and I love this idea too here. The to help me to write or craft an email, but at least to help me to get the frame of mind, what might be important to them in the old days. And I think this is important for us to be able to understand. Like 4 years ago, if I wanted to get the voice of a VP, I had to go and find research that was out there, or I had to do the research myself and try to figure out the voice of a VP. And I also had to do, or I had to do an interview. So with AI
That's right.
here, we're utilizing this to cut through, weeks of stuff, hours of work, to get information on. and it's given us the best idea. So it's giving me the voice of that company. It's giving me the challenges that that VP may be going through, and it's also giving me some of the things that maybe matter most, and the language that I should speak when I'm reaching out to that VP. And I think that there is a very simple, subtle thing, but it's important that we also understand that it it we can get it to the. I'll give you a quick example with this. I was talking to a friend back in August, and one of the podcast movement, and we were doing some research, and we started using Chat GPT, and within like 4 minutes, we had so much information that we could never have put together if it didn't take, it could have taken us like weeks to be able to do the stuff. But the key component that we were able to pull from that was like, what was life like prior to Chat GPT? How do we do the things before? And I think that's one place that salespeople just need to be aware of, that like there's a lot at your fingertips. And I think sometimes we feel like, well, I don't want it to write my email. I don't use it to write my email, but it does. I use it more so on the research side to give me insights to write that email. Am I making sense on that?
Absolutely. It's so critical what you said in terms of the research and the amount of time that it can save you, because these tools have been trained on huge volumes of data from the internet. So it can save you a tremendous amount of time. But just the same, when it creates messages for you, they can sound very generic. So you have to add your own voice. What you do not want to do is have it create a message and simply copy, paste, and send, which sadly a lot of people are doing. You don't want to do that. So please, when you're using these tools, Donald, you mentioned, use it as a starting point to save you research time, to help you think about considerations that you might not have thought of on your own because you don't have the time to do weeks of research. Take advantage of that and then add your own voice to it.
Yes, and I think that part there is where uh where it's powerful. I want to go back to another point you mentioned. In not only does it help you to get started with the content, and also in a research component. I mean, you just can't sleep on that. There's a lot with that, but the idea of practicing. I was talking to a gentleman earlier, and we were talking about role play and how important it is. And I remember when I started off as a sales rep, I was in a company where we didn't necessarily have a whole lot of enablement. One of the organizations, but one of the components, though, I could have easily done with Chat GPT is, especially new. And I'll give you the scenario, Stan, because this could have been worked well. I was going after IT directors, and they were in the medical space, though. And one of the things that was important, I knew about IT, but I didn't know what IT directors were going through or their challenges or issues. But I could have easily practiced some of those role plays. I could have gotten, what are some of the top objections that managed IT service professionals are facing, who are selling to IT directors in IT, in the medical space, like, or selling, EHR records. Like,
Exactly.
I could have gotten that help and could have done a role play back and forth and gotten some direction. Especially like chat now, you have the voice components, even more so. Like, I feel that there's a lot with that. And one of the components that come back is that we have so much at our fingertip. Tying back to the other point that I was trying to make earlier, we have so
Mhm.
much at our fingertips right now, Stan, that I feel that we are almost overwhelmed with all the information that we don't do anything about it. And this is why I want to do this episode. And some of you might say it sounds so basic, but it's that important, I feel. Thoughts, feelings on that?
Overwhelm is a super common feeling among all of us these days because the technology is coming at us so quickly. And we're continually reading about Gemini's at the top of the leaderboard. Oh, here's DeepSeek from China, and look at what they're doing for a fraction of the cost. So you do want to stay focused, especially in sales, because AI is an add-on. It's an extra tool. It's not your primary focus. So you want to make sure that you identify the use cases where AI can help you. And then, for lack of a better term, ignore all the other noise out there
Mm.
because there is so much. Now, the good news is that for users of tools like Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics, some of the higher end tools, a lot of these capabilities will be built into the tools. In fact, a
Yeah.
lot of them already are. But not everyone has access to those. We deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, small businesses that don't have those kind of resources and licenses. And that's where these tools can be extremely helpful. And it's a matter of saying, okay, I want to use this for messaging and research. Let me get good at that. Let me not worry about what it can do with image generation or the latest video generation tool, text to video. I'm going to put blinders on and focus just on how I can use it for these sales use cases, if that makes sense.
Sure does. And I think that part is critical, and especially for the leader listening to this podcast, where she or he's thinking, I want my team to do this, but I just don't want to get them overwhelmed. From what I'm getting from you, give them specific use cases. Almost put on those blinders. Use it for this purpose. It's not to say you're ignorant towards other means, but don't get distracted. Perfect these things first. Perfect your research. Perfect it in role play. Perfect it in preparation. Help it to find holes in what my messaging sound like, or whatever, but it gives you this guidance, and these are simple use cases that you can do. But what I find, what will start happening, and you could probably correct me on this, once you start becoming proficient at this and you see how effective it is, you will find naturally you can find places how you can improve utilizing AI.
Exactly.
And go to your defense, I started off asking you if I know nothing and I want to get started today. You just gave me simple ways that I can go about getting started. Again, research, crafting my message or preparing messaging, giving me guidance on the voice of the client, role play, some simple different areas there.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Let's talk from a leader perspective, though. Leaders maybe we could go back to this. We kind of alluded on this a little bit. We are getting to we're getting to the world, or to the point where we're going to find, like, we human beings, or I would say in the business world, especially startup world, SaaS world, tech world, sales world, we want to look for efficiency. How can I get the most done in the shortest period of time? I want to be efficient here, and I want to scale. What's the danger with AI and trying to scale? And I know none of it may sound like counterintuitive here, but I would just love to get your opinion on that.
Part of the danger of AI is becoming over reliant on it, number one, and losing the human touch, number two. I think one of the things that's counterintuitive about AI is that in the medium to long run, I think the human touch is going to become more and more and more valuable because it's going to be scarcer because so many people are relying on AI. So people, be it sales leaders with their teams, sales professionals and outreaching to potential clients, who don't forget the human touch, who use AI to get more personalized information that they can use when they actually talk to a person to make things more personal and more relevant, will have a huge advantage. So when you ask about dangers, one is don't become over reliant on AI, because all of us are tempted to take the path of least resistance. And I know there's a saying that, it's hard to swim against the current, and the
Yep.
current is convenience. So just beware of over relying on it. Now, at the same time, sales leaders can use AI to help with coaching. So I know that anyone that's recording calls through any of the number of tools out there, a lot of them have an AI component that leaders can use to help analyze the calls of the reps that they oversee and see where they can help to coach people on calls and save a lot of time by using the AI to help them pinpoint areas where, okay, this is where John needs to work. This is where Mary needs to work. Just as a couple of examples.
Yeah, these are very simple, easy things to do. And I also just want to emphasize the part there again. Don't become over reliant on it. And it's easy to do that, to become over reliant. So understanding that the concept that we need not to be too over reliant on AI, still maintain our humanity. I feel like that part I've seen resonate a lot lately, with buyers and with people that I'm connecting with in industry. Don't lose that component when it comes to it. So I appreciate this, Stan. If there's one
Yeah.
major piece of takeaway, one major piece of advice you want folks to leave with from our discussion today, what's that one major piece of advice?
The one major piece of advice is to, if you haven't already, start to experiment with tools, the AI tools that are out there. AI will replace certain tasks, undoubtedly. But at least in the short run, it's not going to take your job. What is more likely is that someone who is conversant with how to use AI is going to take your job if you don't become conversant with how to use AI.
Ooh, amen to
So,
that.
so the biggest thing is start to use it yourself at the risk of sounding promotional. That's why we teach people how to incorporate AI into their sales process to make it a tool that works for them. Um, because it is, as we've talked about, Donald here, an extremely powerful tool.
How, if folks want to get in touch with you or to learn more, or they figure, I want my sales team to take advantage of AI more so, how do they go about connecting with you to learn about that?
The best thing that I would suggest is, because we're building a tool right now that's soft launch, Ask SSL. If you go to askssl.ai, so ASK, S like Sam, S like Sam, L like Larry, .ai, you'll get more information, and you can book a call with myself or my colleagues, Bryn Tillman and Bob Woods. That is one of the easiest ways to find out about a tool that can help you save time and overcome a lot of the challenges that we found sales professionals in particular have with making AI work for them. And then, of course, I'm Stan Robinson on LinkedIn. Please, that's how we connected originally, I believe, Donald, was
Yeah,
through LinkedIn.
yeah.
Please
He
reach out on LinkedIn.
he has a great deal of information, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, go out there and connect with him. Stan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I truly appreciate you and for helping us to be able to get squared away in some ideas on how we can go about utilizing AI in sales.
Thank you so much, Donald. This has been a pleasure.
Listen, that was Stan. I'm telling you, he knows this stuff. It's a very those three areas. I know it may sound like they're basic, but if you're not practicing them, that's a place where you can start, and it can help you. So again, one, I love to look at it from a research perspective. Two, helping to make sure I get the voice of the customer. That's a great way. And then finally, the role play. We have a sim that we have used with our courseware. It's in, I think it's in about 80, 90 universities throughout North America. And one of the things that we find is that people love utilize the simulation. Why? Because it's practice and they're doing this against an AI. Similar idea for you as well. Practice with the role play idea. Practice with an AI, and I promise you, your conversation will be so much better on your next one. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise the level of thinking, but most importantly, I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.